Hey Wargamers, in the past we've done videos looking at points efficiency of different units in the Tau Codex, but today I want to look at a special case of the Retaliation Cadre and how that affects the point efficiency of every unit in the book. So the big thing about Retaliation Cadre is that it has the Bonded Hero special rule, which affects battlesuits specifically, giving them +1 to strength when firing at units within 12 inches, and an additional pip of AP when they're firing at targets within 6 inches. So clearly this benefits battlesuits, right? It's only going to affect battlesuits. It's not going to affect any other type of unit, so it's not going to affect hammerheads or fire warriors or anything like that, just the battlesuits. And so that skews the points efficiency within the codex to favor battlesuits. That's obvious, right? That you don't need a video to tell you that. But the big question is, how much does it favor battlesuits? Does it boost them up so much that they are so efficient that every other non-battlesuit unit is completely out of the rankings, or does it just kind of shake things up a little bit? We're going to talk about that. That's what this video is really meant to do. But of course, that benefit is situational. You have to be within 12 inches or 6 inches to get those benefits. You're not going to be within 6 inches of the thing you're shooting at the entire game, right? And so really what we're doing here today is looking at the maximum efficiency you can get with battlesuit units and using that as kind of a high bar compared to the standard efficiency we've calculated in the past, and saying, okay, you're going to expect some sort of efficiency between these two numbers if you're using this unit consistently throughout the game. So that's kind of what the deal is that we're looking at what's the best case scenario for these things and how that might influence how we build our armies under Retaliation Cadre. Now, there are some general trends which you would expect just based on, thinking about how this change in strength and AP is going to affect different loadouts, but it plays out in the numbers as well. Before we get into the rankings here, I just want to point it out that things like star size and stealth suits are going to get a really big boost because having that extra strength, having extra AP for relatively low strength and weapons that don't have AP to begin with, that's a big proportional change. That's a really big relative shift, and so those units get a really big boost from this against kind of their preferred targets. Fire knives, having an extra strength and extra AP on missile pods in particular makes a really big difference. Not as big of a difference on plasma rifles because they already have pretty decent strength and definitely have reasonable AP, and a lot of times having that extra AP really just doesn't make a difference. So missile pods on fire knives makes a big difference here. Sunforge, they don't really see that big of a difference, really, kind of in line with the fire knives because they already are such high strength, high AP. But there are some marginal cases where that one extra strength, one AP makes a difference for them. But it's much less consistent than things like star size and stealth suits, where you're getting a really big proportional shift just across the board. Sunforges have the opposite problem. They just see a relatively minor shift in just a few cases. Riptides and Ghost Kills, kind of the same thing. They are better, but it doesn't really change the rankings of their weapons. Ion in particular is going to benefit more than Fusion or even the Heavy Burst Cannon, just based on where their numbers are, right? Like basically you're getting a free overcharge on your Ion with this benefit. Now, how does that actually play out in terms of Ghost Kill strategy and Riptide strategy? Well, for Riptides, it's not a big deal because they can fall back and shoot, but Ghost Kills is kind of a different thing, right? So keep that in mind. We're looking at these numbers kind of bare bones without any additional context, but I wanted to point out these general trends so you know what to expect in terms of how some of these different loadouts, how these different units are going to be affected, and you can see that manifest in these different rankings. So if you haven't seen one of these videos before, basically we're going to go through a bunch of different target units and look at which units offer the most damage per point spent to acquire that unit. And I will give you the top 7 entries here. Now, something a little different in this video than earlier ones. I'm not going to talk about commanders because commanders are really just embedded in their different crisis units, and so they're really just an extension of those. So we're not going to take time talking about those. And we are taking into account the description, the keywords for the target. So for example, here to begin with, we're looking at guardsmen, which are toughness 3, 5 up save, 1 wound. We are accounting for the fact that those are infantry models. So star size, surprisingly, rise to the top here. Star size, if they're getting the full benefit of bonded heroes, are going to be your most efficient choice by quite a bit if they have flamers. And that's something you're going to see across the board, that star size with flamers are going to be more efficient than star size with flamers or burst cannons, or star size with just burst cannons. Flamers are going to be the more efficient choice, but that comes with a cost, right? That you're giving up some range there, and there are some other caveats there. But star size with flamers are going to be your most efficient unit for taking out a profile that's toughness 3, 5 up, save with 1 wound that is infantry. Right behind them are breachers with a fireblade, kind of our old go-to unit here for taking out infantry. Then stealth suits show up, right? Stealth suits with that extra strength, extra AP, do much better than they would otherwise. And so stealth suits show up here as an efficient offensive choice beyond their benefits of just being really effective spotter units. Pathfinders with ion rifles, fire knives with missiles. If the target is at full wounds, that's what this little asterisk is going to be noting. So fire knives with missiles against a unit that is at full wounds are going to be really efficient here. I will drop the asterisk when they show up regardless of the wound profile. Tiger Shark with a burst loadout, and then Strike Team with Fireblade also are rounding out our top 7 against guardsmen. If we look at Elder Guardians, very similar profile, right? Another toughness 3, 1 wound model, but this time we're dealing with a 4 up save instead of a 5 up save. The profile switches a little bit, right? That improved save means that there's more value to having a higher AP, and so breachers actually come out on top here, followed by star size and strike team, then stealth suits, fire knives, pathfinders, and tiger shark again. So it's all the same players, but just a slightly different order for the guardians. Looking at toughness 4 targets, again, these are going to be infantry. For a Primaris model, so T4, 3 up save, 2 wounds, we're seeing fire knives with missiles again, assuming the target's at full wounds. Star size with flamers, then breachers with fireblade, then vespids show up here. Fire knives without being at full wounds. So again, fire knives, again, particularly with missiles, are going to be a really effective unit against Primaris. Then strike team with fireblade, and pathfinders with rail rifles is going to be your 7th most efficient unit against Primaris. For Sanguinary Guard, which T4, 2 up save, 2 wounds, at least for now. Fire knives, again with missiles, but not exclusively with missiles, are going to be your top pick here if the target's at full wounds. Then Star Size with flamers, Vespid, breachers with fireblade, fire knives, regardless of the wounds. Broadsides with heavy rail rifles, the AP there really coming in handy, and then pathfinders with rail, rounding out your top 7 against that profile. Looking at some T5 targets, so Orc Boys with 5 up save and 1 wound. We have breachers, star size, again with flamers. Strike team with fireblade, stealth suits, fire knives against a unit that's at full wounds, pathfinders with ion, and then fire knives with missiles showing up at the bottom of the list here. For a Tyrannid Warrior, so T5, 4 up save, 3 wounds, breachers, star size, strike team, stealth suits, pathfinders with iron, fire knives with missiles if the target's at full wounds, and then the Tiger Shark shows up again as an efficient unit. Looking at toughness 6, so broadside battle suits, toughness 6, 2 up save, 8 wounds. Sunforged suits make their first appearance in this video, highly efficient against broadside battle suits. Fire knives if the target is at full wounds. Broadsides themselves with heavy rail rifles, hammerheads with rail guns, fire knives with plasma, actually, instead of missiles, regardless of the number of wounds remaining on the unit, are going to be efficient here. Piranhas with fusion blasters, and tiger sharks with rail. So this is actually one of the more interesting lineups that we see. Plasma, fire knives, and piranhas show up in the rankings. For the Star Weaver, T6 4-up save, 6 wounds, Fire Knife, Sunforged, Breachers with the Fireblade, Broadsides with the Rail Rifle, Fire Knives with missiles, specifically, Tiger Shark with Ion, and then a Crudox with Repeater Gun. Again, a more interesting loadout. T6 is an interesting target profile for Tau because there is kind of a little bit of a niche here for some loadouts that normally wouldn't see a lot of attention. They're not super low toughness. It's not super high toughness. You get kind of this middling arrangement of weapons that are actually really efficient against that T6 profile. All right, when we jump up to some of our more mainline tanks, like a Land Raider at toughness 12 with 2-up, 16 wounds, big surprise, Sunforged suits are going to be the #1 pick here. Sunforged suits, regardless of who's leading them, are going to be highly efficient. Broadsides with the heavy rail rifle, Hammerhead with rail, Storm Surges showing up here as well. Basically, all the weapon loadouts are pretty comparable for Storm Surges. Fire Knives if the unit is at full wounds, Tiger Shark with rail, and Riptide with Ion showing up as our #7 pick. And that Riptide is overcharging its Ion in order to get to that spot. I think that's the first time that we've seen Riptides in this video, actually. Leman Russ, toughness 11, 2-up save, 13 wounds. Again, very similar loadout, if not almost exactly the same. The only difference is that we have Sky Rays showing up against the Leman Russ. Now, when we introduce invulnerable saves, things get a little bit different. So looking at Zangars with T4, 6-up save, 1 wound, and a 6++. Strike Team, Breachers, Star Size are our first battlesuit unit against this. Pathfinders, Stealth Team show up again, Fire Knives, and the Tiger Shark. So with the invulnerable save, that AP difference generally makes a much less of an impact on the rankings. It's more about that strength benefit, but not always. In this case, the AP value makes no difference because they have the same armor and invulnerable save. So really just looking at how that bump in strength affects the battle suits here. And that's why this list looks very similar to the one that we have talked about in previous videos with the standard profiles. Against Terminators, toughness 5, 2-up save, 3 wounds, and a 4++. Fire Knives with missiles show up really nicely here. Again, they're getting bumped to that -2 AP, which is the sweet spot against Terminators because it puts them on their invulnerable save without, extra AP or anything, right? If you have a -3 weapon, you're still only reducing the save by 2, so -2 AP is right where you want to be, and guess what? That's where Fire Knives with missiles are going to be. Star Size, Breachers with Fireblade, Vespid, Fire Knives with missiles again. Again, this is going to be regardless of their remaining wounds. Tiger Shark with Ion, and Pathfinders with Rail. Now looking at Custodians, so toughness 7, 2-up save, 4 wounds, and a 4++. We see Fire Knives at the top of the list, whether the unit is at full strength or not. Again, it's primarily with missiles, but not exclusively. Tiger Sharks with Ion show up in a close second. Star Size with Flamers, because again, they're infantry, so you get some nice perks with Star Size there. Broadsides with heavy rail rifles, Vespid, and then Riptides with Ion show up here to top out our 7 units against the Custodian. Hive Tyrants, toughness 10, 2-up save, 10 wounds, 4++. Sunforged suits, with that number of wounds, having Sunforged is going to be really, really good. So is a Hammerhead and Broadsides. All those are going to be able to chip away at those wounds profiles really efficiently. Fire Knives, again, at full wounds are going to be efficient. Tiger Sharks with Rail, Breachers with the Fireblade, and Pathfinders with Rail are all going to be your most efficient choices for taking out a Hive Tyrant. Looking at some high toughness values with invulnerable saves, we have Magnus at toughness 11, 2-up save, 16 wounds, and a 4++. Sunforged, Broadsides, Fire Knives, again, our battle suits that are intended to be very punchy. Not surprising that they show up on top here. We see a Hammerhead, Breachers, Tiger Shark, and Sky Ray bringing up the rear. Against the Wraith Knight, toughness 12, 2 up save, 18 wounds, 4++. Sunforged, broadsides, fire knives, again, hammerhead, tiger shark, fire knives. Storm Surge, again, very similar rankings here, but now we have the Storm Surge in there as well to spice things up a little bit, right? You gotta have some room for your Storm Surges, I suppose. And then finally, looking at Imperial Knights, toughness 12, 3 up save, 22 wounds, and a 5++. We have our Sunforged Broadsides, Fire Knives combo, followed up by the Hammerhead, Storm Surge, Tiger Shark, and Sky Ray. So again, the things that you would expect to be punchy are punchy against Imperial Knights, especially when they're battle suits. So overall, pretty intuitive takeaway, right? That it's really just dialing up the battle suits to 11, which is the point of the Retaliation Cadre as a detachment anyway. So that's not it's working as intended, basically, right? But one of the big takeaways from this analysis, I think, is that really you have a lot of benefits for bringing battle suits, especially if you think about some of the enhancements and stratagems that are embedded in Retaliation Cadre. But it's not like they are always exclusively the best choices, right? It's not like every battlesuit shows up in the top 7 for every target. There is some additional choices here that offer you this comparable output, but open up some different strategic options, right? Like if you want to have better range, you can take the Hammerhead or the Sky Ray. You don't have to look just at Sunforged suits, or you can look at Riptides as a little bit more of a punchy unit and less as an anchor or a more durable unit. They do have a little bit more offensive capability in Retaliation Cadre because of those benefits, and so you should feel emboldened to really get them in there, get those benefits, and utilize their war gear in a way that's going to allow you to be really aggressive and cagey with them in a way that maybe you wouldn't in a different detachment. So overall, I think the math hammer on this does suggest that, of course, with Retaliation Cadre, you want to really be sticking with your battle suits, but you do not have to use them exclusively. Looking at things like Breachers, in particular, Vespid, are going to be effective complements to your army overall because they offer you some diversity of tactics in addition to just being efficient units. So let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and of course, happy wargaming. If you stuck around to this point in the video, maybe you want to join our Discord community as well. There's a link in the description below. Special thanks to all my supporters over on Patreon, but especially the folks that you see on your screen now. If you want to help make more invasive wargaming videos, consider joining our community over there as well.